how do we create change? For example, the word generation program that I mentioned. At the end of the passage, the launch passage, there's the question, what do you think? So we don't have to change the teacher's mindset. We don't have to spend, an institute persuading them that listening to students is important. We
Right.
structured the question, right?
Mhm.
What do you think? So the
Mhm.
teacher's using the curriculum, turns the question over, and then bit by bit comes to understand students differently and understand the value of listening to students
Mhm.
and how much the challenge level drops when students are your partners in learning rather than, antagonists because they would rather be doing anything but what you're asking them to do.
Mhm.
So we want to design experiences that don't ask for so much up front, but allow for learning as you go. The third, I think, critical feature of all of our design is to think about the fact that um, nobody likes to be told what to do, right? And so much of what we assume we have to do with students is tell them what to do.
Mm.
And I really learned from exceptional teachers that when you take away that directive, you completely change the dynamic. Um, are working right now on a project that I'm just so enthusiastic about with the DC public schools. And we're working in Ward 7 and 8. They're the lowest income areas of the district. And we I personally was in classrooms for about 100 hours observing and seeing what's happening differently in those pockets where students are doing really well
Mhm.
and how that differs from what's going on elsewhere. And what those teachers have figured out is how to give students agency and ownership, and how, in just the simplest ways, to reduce the number of orders they're giving to students. And there is a classroom. We clocked the number of times the teacher stopped to make a behavior correction. In a couple of classrooms, it was as high as 72 times in the two
Wow.
hours that we were there.
Wow.
We had two classrooms in which it was zero.
Mhm.
So the question is, what are those things that are going on
Mm.
in those classrooms? So we had a teacher whose classroom we put a swivel camera in. So we would be capturing her practice right from day one. And, she wants students to come in and put their stuff in a locker and not throw it on the floor and not push and shove like any other teacher. But what she does is she lets the students gather and she said, now we have to think about how we're going to come into the classroom. So I want you all to see what I'm going to do. And she goes out into the hall and she skips in and sort of pushes her way through and takes the backpack and throws it on the floor near the lockers and then goes to sit down. And the students yell, no, you can't do that. And she says, well, I guess I can. I just did. No, you can't. Well, why can't I? And they tell her, that's not okay. Somebody could trip on that. And somebody doesn't know where that belongs because you just threw it on the floor. And so she says, well, so what are you trying to say to me? And the kids are saying, well, you have to be safe. So the kids are saying that's not okay. So she then asked the kid to come in. She had actually had three kids come in and demonstrate how they would do it. So they do. Kids know, right? They know to come in, to walk quietly, hang up their stuff, and they did. So it's theirs, right? She does that at every turn, and her kids are leading the morning meeting by mid-year. Half of the class is reading at the end of the year in kindergarten,
Mhm.
reading fluently. It's just remarkable, and zero behavior corrections. So
Mhm.
what we're trying to do is figure out how, in the word generation kind of mode, how to get that understanding that when students have ownership of their behavior, when you stop telling them constantly what you want them to do, and create the interest on their part in doing it, it changes everything. So we're really trying to design for getting the practices in teachers' repertoire that support that.
Wow. I can envision that as a practitioner,
Mhm.
and that goes back to something that you both brought up earlier about centering the experiences of the educator, right? By being in the classroom for that number of hours and seeing the discrete
Mhm.
behaviors that the teacher is demonstrating and how those generate different kinds of responses among students. And
Mhm.
then it connects to that idea that you aren't the only designer, that they're contributing to the design because they are modeling the behaviors that you need to integrate into the design that you can then scale for other teachers
Right.
to learn and grow from.
Right.